Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Jacob.
I was sleeping there when we started.
It's time to go, Steph. Let's get the show
Wake up.
Let's get the show on the road.
Okay, so we are here today to finish up our food unit, which we love. We were talking about mushrooms on day 1, and we'll continue to talk about them today. Today, though, we're going to look at specific types of mushrooms or different kinds, especially that are used in cooking, which is always fun. There's one kind, the last one, Enoki or Enoki. It's pronounced either way. We're going to say Enoki when we read. Oh, I just looked up Enoki Mushrooms. Oh, I've had these before.
Oh, okay.
Those are good.
Yeah, those are sort of like the ginseng-gu, I think.
Oh, yeah, those are excellent.
Yeah, very tasty.
Yeah, once I saw the picture, I realized that's what I had last night to eat. So those are delicious.
And you know what? They're helping your gut health right now, you know? They're doing good things for you, Stephanie.
I know, I love that. I love it when I eat food that's healthy that I also enjoy because I like to eat a lot of food that's not healthy. Okay.
The interesting thing about mushrooms is a lot of people like to go hunting for mushrooms, right?
Right.
This is something that people do. They'll go out into the forest and they'll hunt for wild mushrooms because oftentimes they're just growing in the ground, usually in a shady place, right? So the woods are a good place to find mushrooms, but you have to be really careful because mushrooms might not be safe to eat if you find them in the wild. So you want to be really careful. You want to know what kind of mushroom it is before you eat it because it might make you sick or even worse, right?
Oh, yeah. Got to be really careful. So let's go ahead and get started, guys, by reading through the article. And then we'll be back to talk about some of these amazing mushrooms.
Button mushrooms, Cremini mushrooms, Portobello mushrooms. Though this section lists 3 names, don't be fooled. These mushrooms are all Agaricus bisporus. The different names describe the same mushroom at different ages. When young, it's often white and is called a button mushroom. It has an exceptionally light flavor. When a button mushroom grows a little larger, it's called a Cremini mushroom. Creminis are always brown, and they have a richer taste and firmer texture. They don't get soggy easily, making them ideal for inclusion in soups and stews. Portobello mushrooms are also brown and can be as big as hamburger buns when fully grown. This makes them a great bread substitute for people who want to reduce the amount of bread in their diet. On the other hand, portobellos have a delicious meaty flavor, so they make spectacular vegetarian burgers. Oyster mushrooms. This pale mushroom's Asian origins make it essential in Japanese, Chinese, and Korean cuisine. However, its mild, slightly sweet flavor has made it popular worldwide, and it's commercially cultivated all around the world. Dried oyster mushrooms are especially easy to cook with, too. Unlike most dried mushrooms, they don't need to be rehydrated. Just add them to a dish and they'll soak up moisture on their own. Enoki mushrooms. Enoki mushrooms are slender and delicate in appearance, but they have a delightfully crunchy texture. Their flavor is mild, so they work well in soups, where they absorb the flavor of the broth and other ingredients. Their texture and mild flavor also make them a great deep-fried snack. Once you start exploring the wide world of edible mushrooms, you'll never want to stop.
Okay, folks, let's get started. What kind of mushrooms are we going to talk about first? Well, we've got 3 different kinds here. Button mushrooms. I buy those all the time, those little white ones.
Yeah, they're cute.
Yeah, they are. And they're awfully easy to use. I put them in stir fry. I like them with my steak. Love those. Cremini mushrooms, I don't use so much, so I'll have to look into those more. And then the portobello mushrooms are those really big brown mushrooms that, especially if you're a vegetarian or you're wanting to eat less meat, you might get a hamburger where they use the portobello mushroom as the the patty, you know, the burger patty. So I see those a lot too. Those are delicious as well. So let's look at this for a minute. It says, though this section lists 3 names, don't be fooled. These mushrooms are all Agaricus bisporus. So the different names describe the same mushroom at different ages. I had no idea. Is that true?
It's true, yeah. I think sometimes I was supposed to buy a button mushroom, like a pack of button mushrooms.
Yeah, it's usually in a pack.
Yeah, because you'll just, you know, if you're making a curry or something, you can just add them and it's great. But then you buy the Cremini, but they're kind of similar. Maybe just the size is different or the color is different. Or we think of like the white is the button and maybe the brown is the Cremini.
Button mushrooms are always white to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. You're actually buying the same mushroom, but just at different stages, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, so the different names. Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So
there we go.
If you look up Cremini on the web, they are brown and they're bigger than the button.
A little bit bigger.
I like those too.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, yeah, because you're actually eating the same mushroom, just at a different stage of its life.
Yeah, but you know the Portobello's tastes so much more juicy. It has more umami, that savory taste. So I'm surprised they're actually the same mushroom as the button, which is kind of mild.
As it gets older, maybe it ages. We talk about how a food can age, or wine. Wine changes taste as it gets older, and so people say that a very old wine tastes a little bit richer
has
or
more depth,
more flavor than a new wine or a young wine. So same thing with mushrooms. They change taste as they get older.
So cool. So when young, it's often white and is called a button mushroom. It has an exceptionally light flavor. I do like that flavor. I just kind of saute them in butter, and they're delicious. You don't have to add anything else.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So when a button mushroom grows a little larger, as we were saying, it's called a Cremini mushroom. So Creminis are always brown, and they have a richer taste and firmer texture. So firmer just means a little more solid feeling. The texture is a word we use a lot in this world. We use it for food especially, but we use it also for the way a surface might feel, a material feels when you touch it. How something feels in your mouth is its texture. I was telling someone the other day, I don't like tangyuan because of the texture. I can see the bubble milk tea, those little tapioca
balls.
That's okay.
The boba.
But it's the texture on the tangyuan. It's not for me.
Some people have sort of a reaction to different textures, and
bananas sometimes make me sick.
Right.
Yeah.
People just don't like how something feels in their mouth, and then that means it's not really the taste; it could be the texture that kind of puts them off a certain food.
Is it smooth or rough?
Yeah.
Or crunchy. We're going to talk about some of those words. So this one has a firmer texture or feel than the button mushrooms. Oh, here's something. They don't get soggy easily. Soggy is a great word we use to describe something that's unpleasantly wet and soft.
Yeah.
So if your cereal in the morning, I love my cereal not to get soggy.
Right.
And I don't like my, I hate it when the milk is in the cereal so long, all of it just turns soft. I can't.
Will you throw it out or will you eat it? You'll probably eat it, but you'll hold your nose.
I don't throw it out anymore. I used to when I was young, but now I know don't put too much cereal or too much milk.
Okay.
So I don't want to waste the food.
Yeah, you don't want to waste it. Yeah. But when it gets soggy, it just doesn't taste as good, and it's kind of mushy, right? M-U-S-H-Y. If something's mushy, it just has a very soft, kind of unpleasant texture to it. So these mushrooms, they don't get soggy. That means that they're ideal for inclusion in soups and stews. Inclusion is the noun form of the word include, right?
Right.
And to include something means to kind of bring it in. Okay, when we talk about inclusion is an important word these days because we talk about different groups are trying to fight for more inclusion. In North America, for instance, if you have a disability, let's say, that prevents you from doing something, this group might try to fight for inclusion. They say, we want to be treated like everyone else, and so therefore we should be brought into society as a whole, or inclusion as a whole, which is important. So here, inclusion kind of means just adding it to a soup or a stew. Now, a stew is sort of a thick, kind of rich, hearty dish that you would prepare on a stove. You can make beef stew. So you start off with a little bit of water, and then you add a lot of tomatoes, a lot of meat, maybe some onions, and then you want to make it, it's like thick, right? So you want to stir it. And
it is thicker than a soup.
So it's thicker than a soup. So I'm not sure in Taiwan if we eat stews a lot. It's more of kind of an English thing or a North American thing.
No, I have some Taiwanese friends, of course, and I made stew for them, my mom's version, and gave them stew. And then the next week, they brought me stew, and it tastes more Taiwanese, you know?
Okay. So but it's also thick.
But it's thick, and they use the potatoes and the meat and the carrots, you know, that we usually do. Yeah, they do stew here. But we would call it something else, I think. But soup for us is different than stew. Soup is lighter.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to cook as long. Usually stew is using a type of meat that takes a long time to get tender.
Okay.
It's not so expensive, so it's cheaper to buy this kind of stuff, and you cut it into pieces, and then it has to just stew or roast for a long time in that liquid. So, yeah, this makes it ideal for soups and stews. I can see why. Sometimes when I make soup, I won't add certain vegetables until the very end because I want them a little bit crunchy.
Okay.
A little bit. Even my carrots, I don't like them, too soggy. And if you cook carrots too long, they get very soggy.
Right. So your stew is a little crunchy then, maybe, or has different textures to it?
Yeah. Well, sometimes most stew though is all very mushy, very
Everything
soggy.
is soft.
Yeah, I think so. No, I was talking about soup when I do just some soups.
Okay.
I'll put some of even celery, I'll put it in very, very late, very last minute, so the celery's crunchy.
I'm hungry.
Yeah. Before we take a break, though, we're going to listen to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back to continue talking about some of these mushrooms.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们昨天带大家看了很多这个香菇的好处，有什么样特别的可以让你免疫系统增强，然后又有维他命 D， 然后还有是麦角硫因 ergothine 的成分。那到底香菇我们常常能够买到的是哪几种呢？它有什么样的特色呢？我们先来看一下今天的第一种。第一种这个标题列了3个名字，难道是3种菇吗？很特别哦。第一节提到的 Button Mushrooms, Cremini Mushrooms, Portobello Mushrooms 这个所谓的波特菇，这3个名称其实都是同一种啦。基本上呢，这个蘑菇就是属于所谓的双胞蘑菇，而且是不同年龄的名字哦。也就是说，当它还小年轻的时候，白色的这个叫做Button Mushrooms， 也就是所谓的小蘑菇。小蘑菇我们在市场常看得到一盒一盒在卖的，然后呢常常会用来做一些什么牛排酱或者是拿来煮汤也很好吃，它有一种很特别的一种淡的味道。那因为我们这边要谈这个食物的质地，谈食物的味道，所以接下来呢我们在同样第一节第2段这个地方的第2句又看到形容味道的一些形容词，比如说接下来这个我们看到的小蘑菇 Button Mushroom 稍微再长大一点点的时候会变成褐色的，那么它就被称为 Cremini Mushrooms， 那它的味道就比较浓郁哦。在第2段这边第2句的地方，我们看到比较浓郁丰富的味道用的是 rich 这个形容词。好，所以 Creminis are always brown and they have a richer taste， 它们尝起来的味道是比较浓郁的，那么在口感上是比较扎实。看到这个形容词呢，接下来是后面的是 firm就是很紧实的意思， texture 就是所谓的口感，那口感上呢就比较紧实，而且味道比较浓郁，而且重点是比较不容易会潮湿，所以不容易潮湿的这一种 Cremini Mushrooms 就很适合放在汤里面或者是去炖它。同样在第2段这边的第3句，我们特别注意一下，这里有一个关系子句的简化哦。好，我们先来看一下逗点之后的 making 还原其实是 which makes， 就是一个补充说明的关系子句。那么 which 呢，指的是逗点前面的一整句话，这整句话的意思就是所谓的褐色蘑菇不太容易潮湿，而这一整件事情 which 就使得褐色蘑菇很适合来做汤或者是炖菜，所以 which 其实代替逗点前面的先行词，可是先行词有可能是逗点前面的一整句话这件事情哦。好，那么 which 删掉之后 makes 就直接变成 making。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. We're talking about mushrooms, and when we left you, we had just finished discussing button mushrooms, Cremini mushrooms, and Portobello mushrooms, which actually are in the same family. So when they're little baby mushrooms, they are button mushrooms. Then they grow into Cremini mushrooms, which are a little bigger, firmer, and browner. And then Portobello mushrooms are those big mushrooms that they sometimes use as a replacement for meat or hamburger in a hamburger.
Right.
So those are kind of fun.
You actually can grill them. When you think of the different ways to prepare mushrooms, we talked about sort of lightly frying them or sautéing them or adding them to a soup or a stew. But these portobellos are really big and really thick. You can actually put them on the grill, and then after, put them between some bread, maybe add a little bit of sauce on there, and you have a vegetarian burger.
Yum. Oh, I would need a grill, but that sounds delicious. But they are so big, I can see wanting to grill those. Yeah, I was thinking portobello, you probably don't just want to sauté them with a little butter. They need some real manhandling or some tougher fire there. So grill sounds like a great idea.
Right.
So they are also brown. They can be as big as hamburger buns when they're fully grown. This makes them a great bread substitute for people who want to reduce the amount of bread in their diet. Yeah, some people actually use those as the bun.
Nah.
Yeah, that's kind of weird for you.
I don't know if I would be into that. But I mean, if you like it, I guess it's healthier because we want to.
It's healthy.
A lot of people want to cut out the carbs, right? And bread does have a lot of carbs, unfortunately.
So on the other hand, it says portobellos have a delicious meaty flavor. Again, we would describe this as having an umami flavor, a savory flavor. So they make spectacular vegetarian burgers. We have a vegetarian sitting right here with me today.
That's right.
So tell us what a vegetarian eats and kind of what you usually have in your diet.
Well, I've been vegetarian now for more than 20 years. It's been a long time, so I'm very used to it. And Taiwan actually is a great place because there are a lot of vegetarian restaurants.
Yeah.
And basically what a vegetarian will do will be to just cut out things like any meat and any fish. Those would be the two big things, meat and fish. Some people go a little bit further and then they cut out eggs and they cut out dairy. And I notice here in Taiwan, there's people that are vegetarian that cut out things like garlic and they cut out onions, like green onions, because those are really kind of heat. They bring a lot of heat in the heat-producing foods. And so that's more of a religion thing. I think that's a Buddhist thing here in Taiwan. So for me, I love garlic. I love green onions and things. And so I when I don't get enough of those, I kind of go out and seek them out. And I love cheese too, right? So I love to have cheese and these hearty comfort foods, let's say. But to be a vegetarian, for me, it kind of means just to try and avoid meat and try to avoid fish.
Yeah. And if you do cut out the dairy or anything from an animal, then you're a vegan.
Yeah.
That's a little different. So, yeah. So they would make a great vegetarian burger. And you could put the bread on if you want and do it like Jacob does and put the mushroom in the middle of the two buns.
It's great.
So moving on, we've got oyster mushrooms. These are one of my favorites. This pale mushroom's Asian origins makes it essential in Japanese, Chinese, and Korean cuisine. We see these a lot. If something's essential, it's something that's really needed. It's important. It's vital. That's another synonym for that. V-I-T-A-L, vital. It's essential that we eat healthy food and get enough nutrients for our bodies. So these are also very, very delicious. They're mild. They're slightly sweet. And they're popular worldwide, so everybody likes these. And it's commercially cultivated all around the world. to be cultivated or commercially cultivated means that these cultivated crops or plants are ones grown by people. You don't find them in the wild. You can't go out to the forest and forage for them. Forage is a verb they use a lot on TV now, talking about going out into the wild and picking your own green plants, wild plants, flowers, mushrooms that you can eat. So, yeah, these are commercially cultivated, meaning, yeah, they go out and plant them on purpose, and then people raise them. So they're crops that are raised by people. Commercially cultivated, commercially means they're going to sell them for a profit.
I really like these oyster mushrooms. We sometimes call them king oyster mushrooms, and you can get them at night markets and things like that, and they fry them up. Oh, they're just very, very good. I'm getting hungry just looking at pictures of these mushrooms.
I think
here.
I need to go to the night market.
Okay, so dried oyster mushrooms are especially easy to cook with too. Okay, so you can get them outside as a snack, but you can also buy a bag and cook with them too. Okay, so you can get them dried. This is good. Sometimes when you make a food or you're producing a food, you'll dry it out. You can buy things like dried beans. Is something that you would often buy in a store. You can also buy dried mushrooms. Okay, and so when you buy these, a lot of the time, you can't just cook them. You have to rehydrate them. You have to add water to them. They have to soak up the water again, and then you can cook with them. And this can take a long time. Like if you buy green beans or red beans or even black beans, you have to let them soak for a while before you can cook with them. But with these mushrooms here, you actually don't need to spend a lot of time. They don't need to be rehydrated.
I didn't know that.
Nope, just add them to a dish and they'll soak up moisture on their own. Okay, so if you put these mushrooms into a soup or into a dish or something, they will soak up the moisture. Now, moisture is just the liquid, you might say, of something. If you take a shower and it's really hot, when you get out of the shower, you might look at your mirror in the bathroom and it'll be foggy. Well, why is it foggy? Well, the moisture from the air will collect on the mirror, will collect on the surface of the mirror, and that is a type of moisture as well. Okay, so what these mushrooms will do, they'll just soak up the moisture on their own, and it's easy. It doesn't take a long time to cook them.
Oh, nice. I was always afraid to buy those bags of dried mushrooms. Now I know I don't have to be afraid. So moving on to the final, we've got Enoki. They're slender and delicate in appearance, but they have a delightfully crunchy texture, which is a texture I love. I love anything that's 脆脆的.
Oh, crunchy.
Even when I go to get my guotie in my neighborhood, they always go, oh, you want the crispy ones? And I went, yes, I want the crispy ones. Delightfully is an adverb. The adjective is delightful. If something's delightful, it's really pleasant. It's enjoyable, something that makes you happy. Crunchy is the texture when food is firm. And if you bite into it, it makes a noise when you bite it.
Yeah.
For example, potato chips, they're crunchy. Celery is crunchy. I love that texture. It's my favorite texture of all.
Sometimes with crunchy, you might see it applied to peanut butter. Now, do you like your peanut butter smooth?
No.
Or do you like it crunchy?
I like it crunchy
or
with
chunky?
the peanuts. Yeah, chunky.
With the bits of peanuts in it. Yeah, it kind of has that satisfying feeling when you bite into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't like the tangyuan, the QQ, you'll probably like something that's a little bit crunchier.
The opposite.
Right? Crispy.
Yeah. So their flavor's mild. They work well in soups where they absorb the flavor of the broth and other ingredients. That's nice. It takes in the flavor of the broth. Broth is a very thin soup. Usually with broth, I don't picture a lot of vegetables and meat in it. It's just kind of very thin, mild soup, I would say, broth. We use broth when we're making soup. That's how we start. So their texture and mild flavor also make a great deep-fried snack. Jacob was telling me he's had that.
In Taichung, right? You can go to Taichung. I think it's one of the bigger night markets there, maybe the Fengjia night market. They have great deep-fried enoki mushrooms.
Oh, I've got to go. So once you start exploring the wide world of edible or eatable, that's what that word means. It's something that's you can eat. Edible. Mushrooms you'll never want to stop. Mushrooms are a great kind of world to explore, I think. There's so many different types or species. So we hope you get a chance to try some new mushrooms you've never had before. Right now, though, we're out of time. We're going to listen to our Chinese teacher one more time, and then we'll say goodbye.
接下来这种菇呢，它在长大之后就会变成波特菇，通常也是棕色的。可是波特菇长得很大，可以跟汉堡面包一样那么大诶。所以这是第一种菇，好，所谓的小蘑菇，然后长大之后呢，就会变成褐色蘑菇，甚至更大，叫做波特菇。第二种就是袖珍菇啦，中文翻成袖珍菇，其实英文叫做 Oyster Mushrooms。那么这种袖珍菇啊，它其实是起源于亚洲，像在日本、中国啊、韩国啊，我们这些美食当中都不可或缺。我们来看一下 Oyster Mushrooms 这里的第一句哦，中间有一个 make it essential， 这里的 it 直接指的就是所谓的袖珍菇这个东西。同样在这个第二句的地方，我们也看到 make， 好，看到的是现在完成式 has made it popular， 这里的 it 指的一样也是袖珍菇，所以 make 其实它本身可以有一个不完全及物动词的用法，也就是使什么如何如何 make 加受词再加受词补语 make it essential 让袖珍菇很基本 make it popular 让袖珍菇很受欢迎。不过大多数的这个袖珍菇呢，也可以把它干燥之后变成干的袖珍菇。那么干的袖珍菇呢，也不需要再重新泡水，直接放到汤里面，直接加到菜肴就可以吸收汤汁。同样在袖珍菇的这里第四句，我们来注意一下最后面的 on their own。如果是 do something on one's own 这个片语指的是独立完成动作，所以干的袖珍菇呢就可以 soak up moisture on their own， 自己就可以吸收水分，不需要再重新的泡水。那跟它很像的片语有哪些呢？我们有时候会说 do something for one's own FOR， 如果是 for one's own 的话，指的是强调你亲自的去做那个动作。See it for your own 指的是亲自去做那个动作。还有跟它很像的片语叫做 something of one's own， 通常都是名词加 of one's own OF， 那指的是自己的什么什么。例如自己的房间，我想要有一个 a room of my own， 这个叫做自己的房间。最后一种就是金针菇啦，金针菇真的就是很常看见的，然后常常那个冰箱都会有好几包的，因为金针菇的味道很温和，而且在汤的效果很好，吸收汤汁啊，还有食物的味道。我们看一下金针菇这里第二句的地方有一个补充说明的关系子句，先行词是 soups 就是汤，逗点之后的 where 其实就是连接词 and in the soups， 而在这些汤品当中就可以吸收肉汁啊，吸收肉汤啊，还有食材的味道，补充说明的关系子句。所以吃菇的好处这么多的话，大家不妨也多吃一些菇，对健康有益哦。以上是今天的内容，我是安娜，我们下次见。
That's it, guys. We hope you enjoyed this unit on mushrooms. It's our food unit. And we hope that you'll get a chance to use some of these new words in your vocabulary, especially if you're cooking with friends. Try it out. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Jacob.
Bye. Bye-bye.